Welcome back, Truck Sim fans. Well, I know you're asking that burning question, what is a huge bus like off-road? Well, fortunately, I have this nice example of a Scania G7 1800. It's a Paradiso double-decker, and it's an 8x2. And I also happen to have in front of me one of the hardest trails on the Utopia map expansion, the one running from La Josephine south along the coast road. So let's get into this. What is a huge bus like this doing on a twisty, turny, rocky, well, you'll find out how rocky, trail? Well, because it's there really, just like Everest. It's not too bad at the moment. You'll notice from the bar on the bottom, the information bar there, showing you the gears that I'm in, the speed I'm doing and so on. At the moment, I've got it set up pretty much as standard. The only thing I've done is I've put the Michelin tyres on, the ones that offer the best grip, the ones that I found to offer the best grip anyway on this particular bus. I've also kept it as an automatic gearbox, which is mostly how these things would be configured. So how's it going to get on? This is a 12-speed automatic gearbox, 440 horsepower engine, and a reasonably low ratio final drive. So it should be okay on the face of it, but let's see as we get into this coastal road, start seeing some of these overhanging cliffs and rock outcrops. As you can hear, the engine is already revving quite high. The gears it's selecting, as you can see, it's going through up to 7th gear, then back to 4th, then to 6th, and now it's going to meet a bit of a hill, struggle again. And this is a problem with the automatic gearboxes in these games. They do hunt around a bit, and now we're back down. We've picked 1st. I think he's going to come up soon. There you go. And now the engine is just sitting there, twirling the back wheels as it gets over this rocky outcrop. Got to watch I don't fall down that cliff. So, well, we know there is a solution. I'll apply it in a bit when we get to a straight bit. But this is not relaxing. This doesn't make the best use of the tyres' tractions. On a plus side, this is a very, very smooth bus model. Driving these is actually more relaxing than driving the trucks in Euro Truck Simulator. And a friend of mine, Ash Heisenberg, had said that it's actually a better model than in a specific bus simulator, Fermibus. And that, I think, says more about the flexibility of SCS software platforms than anything else. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it into sequential. Rather than full automatic, I'm going to take control. It's quite simple, and it works on the fly. You don't have to go to a garage or anything like that. So now, as you can see, it's in neutral. I have to manually shift up and down the gears. The accelerator is always forward. The brake is always backward on whatever control device you're using. You can't press backward again and go into reverse like you could in simple automatic, so there's a bit more involved. But let's see, because it's a 12-speed gearbox, because it's a truck engine basically, a nice V8, it will haul quite quickly from a reasonable gear, 4th, 5th gear, that kind of thing, and already you can hear the engine is a lot smoother because it's not hunting around for those gears. It's a lot smoother. Here we'll just have a quick Italian job bus about to go over the cliff, or is it moment, just like in the movie. A nice twin steering set there. Another little oddity of this map is very strange places where you can pull over and have a rest, a parking space, a lay-by, whatever. We're coming up to one right now. This patch of earth by the tree, lovely old tree, is actually, as you can see there, a resting place. Odd that it may seem that they're dotted around the place. It's not exactly plush with facilities, but it is still somewhere where you can pull over and rest should you need to. It's a tunnel. What do? There you go. Blow the horn. So as you can see, although this is a very large bus, it still fits easily through some places like this. Now I'm going to be flipping between the cabin and the outside view. But as you see, the outside view is really quite interesting for big rocks like that stick out in this particular route right into the path of the top of your truck, or in this case, stupidly large coach. It's everyone's first choice for off-roading really, isn't it? Let's see how we get around here. There's an outcrop in front of us. Let's see what luck we've got. The rear axle is actually a steerable axle as well, so it's not just the front two. The only driven wheel is the third axle. But as you can see, you can creep around these corners reasonably well. And then you can get all congratulatory and say, oh, well done you for getting past there. Now I've got to concentrate on this one and forget all about the rock in front. Oh, bump. Well, let's see. Fortunately, this bus does have a reasonably tight turning circle for the size of the vehicle. It's a very smooth drive. It's a very easy thing to manoeuvre. And just to be silly, I have even taken it with an articulated lorry trailer at the back of it hooked up. And that works too. So, if we really wanted to go mad with this map, I could have done that on this route as well. A huge coach towing an articulated lorry trailer. That would have been a sight, wouldn't it? Anyway, these are relatively smooth tracks and trails now. It's more of an unpaved road at the moment, but you will see we're getting to some places where there are some quite rocky bits to the side. We have to keep watching that we don't clip any of these, and in a while I do manage to clip one of the sides when I'm trying to avoid the corner, but you get to points like this where the bus is being tipped from side to side, and it does help to steer a little bit, not drive straight through them. Now this double-decker bus is quite well appointed. The sign on the side says it's a dual class, and indeed it is. The first class passengers, to use that phrase, are in larger, more plush seats in the lower deck behind the driver. Those seats are two on one side of the aisle and one on the other, so it's a bit like on a business class of a jet. The standard class passengers, for want of another word, are in the top deck, and they have two seats either side of the centre aisle. It's quite nicely set out, but obviously with side to side tipping like that one, the first class passengers are going to get the better ride. They're not going to get thrown quite so much from side to side. That road that you see ahead of us is actually the new road that goes from La Josephine down through the island. As we see a bit of time, there was actually some disastrous earthquake that happened, and there are signs to show this. And at that point, the old village was uninhabitable because of the damage, so they built this new road. It's a lot smoother and a lot quicker, but not as much fun. So we're going round these corners quite quickly, but smoothly. Using the mirrors. Another thing about this coach model is it's excellent mirrors. You can drive with both mirrors if you set the field of view to around about 84, 85 degrees, a little bit more than normal. You can drive with both mirrors easily in view, and that makes such a difference when something like this, of this size, you need to keep an eye on both sides, especially at the top deck. Look how close it's getting towards the rock outcrop on the front there. This bus model is quite complex and involving. There are plenty of paint jobs that are already in there. It's a Brazilian developer that did this, so the controls and the panel and things like this are in Portuguese. If you look at that panel in the middle there, the dashboard, the settings for the upper and lower deck. One of the features of this map, though, this route, is that you have to assume, there you go, there's the slight clump, I was trying to avoid this outcrop, is you have to assume that some parts of the road also suffered in that earthquake and they dipped below sea level, just like this. Fortunately here the bus is being tipped sideways to avoid that rock in the inner corner there. But you have to basically drive using the sat-nav, the map above, to give you some idea of where the road is going. And then be careful of rocks on the corners there. So again, I'm using my mirrors. I'm also looking where I'm going around the corner, trying to thread a rather large needle through these narrow restrictions. Apart from the tap that I gave it at the side there and the slight bump at the front and the first few corners, this is a fairly easy route to drive. You've just got to be bold enough to trust that your bus is not going to tip over. Still shifting the gears manually. Driving through some quite amazing looking scenery. This is probably about the worst of the sideways tips, a sudden lunge. So I'm going to drive this higher up the bank so we don't have that full effect. Now, we've basically crossed through the centre of the island at this point, so we're away from the sea we've left behind. We're going to come across some of the more unusual points just around this corner, but as we stop here for a second and just consider the flatness of this area, it is actually amazing that it's not all been flooded out. But there you go. Here's one of the little crazy bits that you find on this route. Worthwhile popping down here just to see this. So what's this? House of Wombat. Who's Wombat, I wonder? Well, I won't bore you with the journey down here, but there's Wombat. That chap stood there. As you see, the clock's jumped on a few minutes. I actually went and parked up there, but we'll clip that bit out. It's not really that interesting watching a bus reverse up someone's driveway. Anyway, back on the trail. Keeping going round some of these corners. I am trying as much as possible to keep it on the trail and not go onto the greenery. Sometimes though, as you've seen in some of the overhead shots, it is a bit difficult. You have to go and use the space that you have available. Fortunately, on some of those points, it's not that rocky. Now, you do get to other parts where it is, and you have to be aware of that. So here's one of the more narrow, tricky spaces where there are rocks that will stick out, clatter your bus or your truck, should you get it wrong. Nice smooth gear change, but you can see the amount of throwing around the upper floor passengers are having to deal with compared to the lower floor. And here's an unfortunate driver who must have fallen off the new overhead highway. Either that or just decided to full on drive into the rock in front without steering or attempting to turn in any way. We'll leave that person behind and carry along. We're now back on the other side of the island again, the original side that we were on before. As you can see, the trail is rising higher, so we now have a fall risk. Should we mess it up and lose grip on one side? That curving new highway above us. I perhaps should point out that the rocks in the middle of this road are just decorative. They don't actually have a collision. Fortunately, because this does not have a great ground clearance. It's not a Unimog. It's a luxury coach. Let's have a look at it from the outside. As we cross this bridge, we come across a small shrine or memorial to in the game, the villagers who lost their lives in that earthquake event that shut off the old village. And if we could look to the side, you would see it just off to our right. But there's the little memorial and a sign to say what happened. This is actually something which is an important feature of this Utopia map add-on. It's a standalone map. It plays as a French province in the Mediterranean, somewhere in Ireland. It's fictional, but it is thought through, perhaps as well as anything that SCS have produced. There are one or two maps like this that you can play as map add-ons, and they're not all from the ProMods studios. This is one of the more fun ones. It has a huge amount of variety and challenging roads that will test your truck driving or bus driving skills and your choice of equipment. Tyre choice is important in this game. There are no right or wrong tyres, it's different for each circumstance and situation. I've had better response on this particular tyre, the Michelin, I think it's the XDE 3D, and the XDD for the driven wheels. It's quite a deep tread to deal with all this off-road, but it's a fairly low profile tyre. There is a higher profile tyre which works better on things like an articulated lorry tractor. The guides that simply compare these online on YouTube and other places don't really go into everything, but it's quite important that you try out, test some of these different tyre choices on some of the roads that you expect to encounter and pick the ones that work best for you. We're getting towards more open spaces now, a bit more water and things to drive through, but we're going to get to some more sandy open beaches. This means we're getting nearer the end of this particular section. However, there's another sign here, so what was this sign warning us of when we have driven all the way up to it? What should we have been aware about? Let's stop and look. Oh good, a powerful engine is needed from this point. Well, like I said, this is a V8, 440 horsepower and a 12-speed gearbox. It's as good as any articulated truck in this game. When you're in the driving seat, you do forget that there's a whole separate deck above you, but it's good to know that they fit under all these points. I'm going to leave the outside camera on as we drive through this water. Yeah, this is not Mud Runner or anything like that one. The water dynamics were not developed to anticipate vehicles driving through them, so it does look like you're sliding on a glass surface. Again, knowing where this road goes is important. Let's have another look at the outside before we dive back in and get to the entrance of this beach area. There's another sign telling us something about the 31 people who died in this disaster. So the in-game stories, the reasons behind various things that have been developed in this map are still there. It's quite a rich development. It doesn't just have a road and a challenging bit of scenery and whatever else. It has a story behind it. It helps these things all hang together. Well, we're through the gates now and beyond the beach. Even though this is still a trail, it is more like one of the more regular roads that you would see in particularly American Truck Simulator, but this is just an off-road track now, and a properly unpaved road. No problems at all for the bus. Still in manual mode, in sequential manual mode. are one or two points on this map, like this road to the side here though, where you think, oh, what would be down there? Now on this particular map there are some of those hidden drivable routes like there are in the official DLC and map sets. But enough of that. As we approach the garage at the end of our drive, I'm going to see just how our passengers have felt, hand out the mops and buckets. Thanks for watching.